Hello everyone, happy hump day and welcome back to Yosemite Valley with your host today, the very nosy sounding camel. Now, this is a very exciting episode today. We are going to build a black panther habitat, and yes, blah blah blah, you've seen that quite often lately, but today is some different approach in here. So we are going to build a Yosemite Valley inspired little creek, and before we jump into the actual usual time lapse, in a few seconds there will be a real-time part, which is kind of new and it's a novelty, but I thought it would be quite nice to have a little bit of a real-time overview before we start to give you a little bit of my thinking behind what I'm going to do in this episode today. So enjoy that one, and then we see each other back in the actual time-lapse. Alright, something quite new for our wonderful Yosemite Valley. I thought to bring in a little bit of variety by just having a little real-time part just in between. It's not going to be very much like you are used to have it, for example, in Masked Bandits or Mike's videos, where they're basically showing you all the process. We will definitely jump back into time-lapse in a few seconds, but I found it very important to talk about what's going to happen now, simply because there is quite a bit of thinking that went into here, and also a reason why we are not going into the domes first, why we're going to do the Black Panther first. Now, you've seen that from the thumbnail already, so I'm not going to tell you anything new here, but I want to give you a bit of a background story of what is happening now. So my idea was to give the Black Panther a very long and a very tunnel-ish looking habitat, so where it has to roam around quite a bit. I want to give it reasons to go, to move, and also to use the foliage and plants around it, and to climb and do these kind of things, okay? So I do want to incorporate, as you can see from over here, a huge water feature, which is the defining element of this habitat. Now, I thought it was also interesting for you to see, because as of now, so the point I'm recording that, this is actually in-game, so I haven't done this yet, okay? So this is my real thinking before I'm doing it, and later on when I do kind of guide you through the time lapse, this is obviously me talking about it after I've built it. So there are 3 or 4, I don't know, 8 or 10 things that changed during the process, but as of now this is my thinking, and I think I want to have like this path which I draw out over here. I want to have it, well, mostly solid, so this is going to be the height over here. We might then go into a bridge section and make it solid again, and I'm really not sure if I want to drag it down then and give the Panther an overpass over here, some kind of like a tunnel, or maybe like a natural overpath. I'm not sure if I'm going to do this here though. Just gonna change a little bit of the heights and stuff over here, so just to make sure that this gets a bit more of an interesting foresty look to it. And yeah, we will just guide this trail through here so that it's really appearing like a panther trail, and then we are going to connect the panther to this area over here, which there will be the shelter, which is mainly in this kind of area, which then connects to the dome as well. And yeah, this is something I wanted to give you before we now move into the time lapse. So enjoy. Alright, a nearly butter smooth transition into the time lapse, and this is going to be very fun, hopefully, for you today. So I enjoyed building this creek over here a lot. Like, it was really a blast, and honestly it was a thing of a 2-episode thing, like a two-step thing. I did this in 2 evenings, and usually it takes me a bit longer, and I do some more breaks in between, and that's the second version, I'm doing that in one big go. But now I didn't really have the time to do it in one go, so I separated that into 2 builds, and usually I jump between builds, to be honest, simply because I maintain a bit of creativity, and whenever I come back I can look at things with a little bit of a clear mind, and this is mostly leading into a little bit of a better result at the end, because you kind of lose the connection a little bit in a very good way, because it's easier for you then to change the next time you revisit your project, because mostly when you're just doing that in one go, you do not really have the time to really look back at it from a bit more objective point of view. I think it's quite often in real life a thing. If you're too much under pressure and time pressure, it kind of often leads into, well, quality-wise good results, but not the best results you could deliver, because you do lack the little bit of distance between what you've done and then what you will in the end of the day deliver. And sometimes it's really good to just, have a good sleep and then come back to a project and, just look at it again and change a few things according to some new things that developed in your head. However, with this one over here, I had a very specific plan in mind. And usually, even though if people quite often say that and quite often tell me that it always looks like I had a vision and kind of looks like so planned and so smooth, I must admit that most of the times I just have a very broad idea and I'm just getting there by a trial and error. So it's not really that I'm having a full plan in my head. Sometimes though, it appears that I do have an idea in my head, and usually it's very good to go for it. And to just, let it go and hope that it works out exactly the way I have it in my mind. And honestly, this is one of the very rare situations over here where it is even better than I expected it. So you have heard my real-time part at the very beginning where I was talking about a few things. Now I do need to say that I already changed a few bits and pieces in here while I was doing the general layout. You've seen the struggle a few minutes ago with the barrier system and the water. I don't know what exactly has been changed, but I can only say it doesn't work anymore. So the little trick that always worked to make little lovely ponds or whatever, unfortunately does not work anymore. And I remember we had this issue with the penguin habitat. This was already a little bit of a hint that we might have some issues. I went back to a lot of old files where I have done this little trick. For example, in Koali, and I gotta say, it's not working anymore. Unfortunately, it seems that Frontier has changed something to the barrier behavior, and I'm gonna ask them again because it's kind of a downer, to be honest, because that was pretty cool to be able to sync that down. And also, my little waterfall tutorial is pretty much obsolete now because it doesn't work anymore, and it's kind of frustrating, to be honest, if people, I still have quite a lot of views daily on the tutorial videos, so it's kind of a bummer, and I might need to put a note down there that this doesn't work anymore simply because the barrier behavior has changed so dramatically, it seems. I think the room in between what you can do and what the game allows you has changed quite dramatically. So the corridor in which the barrier can be lowered down in comparison to the water height has changed significantly, and that's kind of leading into a way more blocky and ugly looking enclosure design, I should say, in terms of making tanks or ponds, if you will. So I needed to go with a more natural way, but I can say for this specific build it didn't really change much. I needed to change my vision slightly. I couldn't go into so, let's say, smooth transitions of the creek, but I managed to kind of hide this away in some rock work. Rock work is kind of a good segue over here, as if I've planned that. I didn't though, but rock work is basically the hashtag of today's episode. So we use all these wonderful new temple pieces. It's kind of an evolution of what I've started in Koali last week. It doesn't actually work only well as a little planting idea or planter idea. It really works well as a little creek bedding. The idea about this whole thing was to make a very shallow little water creek, water stream, I want to call it even, which guides you through the entire panther habitat. I wanted to make it really long, almost like a pipe design, where the panther can go from A to B, or the jaguar. I'm gonna have like a jaguar in here and the black panther, because honestly, for some odd reasons, it takes a million years, 2 decades to get more than one black panther. So I'm gonna stick with my one panther. I put another few hours in to get one for Yosemite, and we're just gonna have it this way. I'm not gonna do any breeding or whatever. It's just taking way too long, and I'm not having that much time to bring that in. But anyhow, so let's continue with the hashtag of today's episode, rockwork. As you can see, I'm narrowing down the overall visual area of the creek by quite a mile, I want to say. I'm making this really narrow. I'm making it as narrow so that the jaguar can only just navigate through. So it's also kind of ensuring that the panther or jaguar is just following this little creek instead of just walking across all the time or just standing in, or even worse, lay down. Because what I did, obviously, by bringing these cobble elements in, I create like a traversable area within the water which they are walking on. They are not swimming. If there are babies, there are some little areas where they do swim though, because the water is not shallow enough, but I couldn't make it any more shallow because then the water source is kind of blocked, and this is why. But as soon as they mature, the whole thing is traversable as walkable area and not swimmable area. Since these animals don't need to swim, they do go into water, but they don't have like a swimming need. It's kind of cool. Because it really looks awesome when you just go through, and it can basically drink everywhere in the habitat, which is kind of cool. You never have any issues with thirst or stuff like that, so that's pretty good. But it was a pain, trust me, to bring all the different enrichment items in a way that they still can be used, but at the other hand, that they also look nice and kind of, you know, embed in a natural organic way into the habitat. Same goes, as always, with these ugly freaking VFX effect things. Again, I think this is one of my most desired changes in the game, just being able to have the VFX effect without actually these things. Again, I want to stress this point so often because for me this is one of the easy wins. Okay, so I love the VFX effects. The VFX team in Planet Zoo is incredible, and they up the game in comparison to Planko by kind of, I don't know, to the moon and back. It's just insane. However, they are so good, but sometimes they are barely even usable because these ugly little nubsies, I don't know how to call this, but these little mechanical things where the water comes out, they're like ugly things, and because the VFX are semi-transparent, you can always see them. And yes, I get it in terms of realism, but again, it's not like in Planko where you want to opt for realism because it's like a theme park where it's definitely artificial. Most of these VFX are from a natural source. As you can see with the water, I am creating an almost natural waterfall. You would not have in real life this thing in there. There would not be this kind of device that needs to push out the water. It's a natural waterfall that the zoo is using. So why not have this, or have the option to disable it or make it transparent or whatever? That's kind of a thing which also defined this episode, because I needed to use so many of those pieces that it kind of drove me nuts how it ended up being. However, let's jump back to the actual design. So what you've seen now, the first 13-ish minutes of this episode, is mainly a proof of concept. So the idea was to see if I can make a habitat that is built around this creek, which in my imagination has been always there and is just used or repurposed into a habitat for the Black Panther, which is using the actual Yosemite Valley fauna and not bringing in a tropical fauna, because I imagine also that these animals, as long as the temperature is fine, they are not necessarily complaining that they don't have any palm trees. You know what I mean? I mean, as long as they are happy with the overall nature given, and they can climb and hide and hunt and do whatever they panther or a jaguar does, I think they will be pretty much fine with it. And I like the twist of having a very Yosemite-ish looking design. And here's me again thanking my Discord members so much, because some of them, as I already mentioned last episode, putting in a lot of images. And in fact, I used a lot of these images as inspiration to make sure that this looks really like in Yosemite Valley. And I got some images from Mr. Kales. Oh, wait, is it Kalesya? I cannot really pronounce that name. I'm sorry for that, but it's written Keilsya. That's the name, okay? So he posted a lot of images because he's living close to Yosemite Valley, and there were some of the images I was pretty much inspired by to build this creek, because he actually put some images. I cannot really tell if it's a creek or just... No, it actually looks like a creek. It's not like a water source, but this was mainly the inspiration I got, and I wanted to get a proof of concept that is focusing on making it look really dense and really overgrown and really natural. At the same time, I wanted to maintain the game's specific demands, I want to say, to make sure that this is still a traversable area for the animals and that can be used by them. And this, you know, provides not only a nice looking, beautiful habitat, but also functional habitat. Now, I'm quite surprised that this worked out, because honestly I threw in so many different plans, and what you cannot see from the time lapse, because I definitely don't have it in and also cut it out, I did a major testing which of the plants are acting as a barrier and which not. So I made myself a little plant and foliage palette of things I knew that when I sink them into the ground that they don't count as barrier, because some of the trees and some of the bushes have pretty huge barriers. So for example, like elephant grass is the best example. That's kind of a huge box. If you put elephant grass in your habitat, you reduce it by 10 square meters straight. It's like insane. But some of the trees, if you use them above ground, they still act like a barrier. But if you sink them in to a certain degree, I think at least like, I don't know, 60% of it is in the ground, it doesn't act as a barrier anymore, and the animals run straight through, which is insanely helpful when you want to build something overgrown looking, but yet traversable. And that's how I went ahead, and I just made myself a choice of trees and bushes where I knew that if I put them into the ground, they will not act as a barrier. And so that way I could maintain a pretty solid traversable area. And fun things, I'm going to show this in the real-time part at the end of the episode. The fun part is that at the very beginning, this habitat was like, I think it was 10 times the size that was needed, and the final version is just enough for 2 animals. Well, it's more than enough, but it's like not a considerably huge habitat for them in terms of navigatable area. It's just okay-ish. It's a great habitat, but it's not like huge. So it's not even like 50% too much or whatever. I think it's like 40% or 30% above the minimum. Okay, we're always talking about the minimum that the animal requires, like in terms of the game, not in real life though. If you look into the AZA requirements, it's more than double the size that is needed. But still, these animals appear to be a lot smaller when you put them into the game, and that's also the reason why you have seen me putting the jaguar in very early on in this build already, where basically nothing was finished. But I decided to do this because I wanted to always see it in relation to the animal, rather than just building and then just kind of finding out at the end of the episode that you just build way too big, which was most of the issues I had in the past, also in Planet Coaster. And so to ensure that I always build in proportion and in size, I kind of put these in at the very beginning. But yeah, you can see already, most of the overall foliage work has been done. Now we now go ahead and build actually the little bridge over here, which I must say I'm quite happy with how it turned out in the end. There's just one little thing you guys might be able to help me out with, and this is I did put a glass wall into this design. You will see that in a second, but I'm feeling that this glass is really making it a little bit too less transparent, so it's actually a bit opaque, and I don't want to have that. I think it's better to leave it out, since it just kind of blocks the view more than I think. Mainly it's because of the sun position, I guess, but you will see that now. As you can see, it kind of is really, it looks a bit weird. So I think it is because it is tilt, the reflection kind of creates a bit less of a transparency, and that kind of looks a bit odd. But I do want to have this little tilt towards the, like, kind of, it's slightly bended to the outside. So I wanted to have this to give the people more room to look at the habitat. But you can already tell from the time lapse and some of the angles how nice the lighting works with this overall design. As I said, you will hopefully see that in the real-time part. It's looking absolutely gorgeous. From some angles, it's looking super realistic, and it's a lot of fun to see this habitat, to feel this habitat, to just interact with it. And this is exactly what I wanted to do. Also, I kind of got rid of one of the issues I had with the water earlier on, by just building these little pipes over here, as you can see. So I didn't want to make this water, like I initially thought I will just get over this little gap by just putting in a lot of VFX and making it look like the water really tumbles down the rock, but just coming against it, and because there's so much pressure in the river. But in fact, it was too much of a height difference that I went ahead and made this little pipe solution. Also for me personally, that was kind of a good decision, because then we have a solid area below the bridge, which the jaguars seem to like a lot, and I think I'm also fine with having it over there, because it adds this little bit of a solid touch to it. You can already tell now I'm working as the last finishing touches, I'm working a lot around the traversable area, trying to fix everything, maximize the way they can navigate, and just making sure that the animal can traverse everywhere and run everywhere. So that's kind of cool. I really do like this little detail here. So yeah, last bit is making actually these pipes pull off the water again, so otherwise it's not really realistic. And now we just put in the last VFX before we move in a few seconds already in the real-time part, and I'm gonna show you the final result of the habitat, even though some little things are still open to be done, but they will be done in the next episode alongside a new animal, which I'm also going to talk about. You guys did decide on which animal we put, or which animals, plural, we're gonna put into the domes, which I'm super excited for. And yeah, now let's have a look how this looks in real time. I hope you enjoyed the time today and a little bit of talk about the process. And yeah, I catch you at the other side of the cut. Alright, so here's our little friend Bagheera, as I've named this one, because this is a male Black Panther baby, and Bagheera is 1.9 years old, I guess, so it's about to be mature. It's gonna be, wow, Bagheera is starting to jump quite a bit at the very beginning, and we can just follow Bagheera discovering his new habitat over here. Now, just to give you a little hint why I put it in the trade center is mainly because I wanted to make sure this one is staying a baby. So you have the experience of the baby and you have the experience of a fully grown one, which I will do for the thumbnail and for the later stages of the game. So I'm gonna make like a little save file for the baby as well as for the parent. And I'm just hoping that this animal is then having black babies. Are you just going to kick the box down? What are you doing with the box? Okay. Hello? What are you? Oh yeah, well, that was close. Nicely done. It's in the little creek. Congrats. You've done a major job here. That was awesome. Okay. So what are you doing next? Look, I mean, okay, come on, that is insane. I just need to pause the game here and make a little screenshot. Oh my lord, this is fucking beautiful. Look at this, guys. This is just nuts. All right, so I was just taking some screenshots in case I'm gonna miss this one once it you know, matures, and once it's gonna sink in the ground here. Interesting. No, I mean, that's a total normal behavior for a jaguar baby, and then it's gonna be transferred back into here. No, that's totally fine. Okay, I mean, it's kind of crazy how good they can jump already, okay? So they are young, but they're very powerful. It's Pikachu in black, okay? So it's gonna go and get a drink, I guess, down here. Are you just going to the box now? Because you were the one that destroyed the box. See, this is the little gap I meant where they're still swimming. Is the box somewhere hidden in here, though? Like, why are you... No, it's not. Is the box reset? Yeah, the box is reset. I think you might just want to go up again, in case you want to go to the box. I love it. The baby is just having fun. Okay, so now, let's just have a look at the creek. Because I am, again, very proud of how this turned out. Because the animals are behaving quite nicely. They roam around in the whole habitat. You can see how... the big one is just running through the creek. It's really using everything. There's a little sprinkler hidden in here. Now, again, the idea was to build something that is not the typical tropical panther habitat, but actually something that you would be able to see in Yosemite Valley. And as you can see, I try to incorporate as many little tweaks and things that are, yeah, just creating a nice little experience. So if we were to use the path as it is supposed to be, you just come over here. I mean, intentionally blocking the view a little bit here with these rocks, because I don't want to make you look too much into the habitat already. You can see the waterfall, you can see a bit of a peek here of the habitat, you can see the creek, and you can see the beautiful nature also in the background. And once we've done a better facing of the rocks, it's going to be looking a bit better. And then you're just moving over, and then the view opens up the first time. We do have to put some fences in here with some security, obviously, because people can just jump in and die, which is not good, only if you want to get rid of some guests. But yeah, no, this is how it looks. You can see some of the animals moving around. The further you go, I put yourself some stones in the way, which I need to get rid of. And then you go further, there are some rocks over here and there, just to make sure that you do not always look into it, because I want you to travel further, and you see this bridge and you want to get to this bridge because you want to have a better position. Okay, you want to see more, and then you just go on top of the bridge and you get this wonderful view to the left hand side into the creek, or you watch the right hand side, which is this more narrow area with a little pond at the end. But still, you can see the small one, the black one, just threw this box down again. I think it's having fun throwing the box down. But yeah, you can see this creek from over here, but there is still an area you haven't discovered yet, and this is paired with the wonderful view of the half dome. And you can already tell from this view that I think I want to get rid of the glass. It really doesn't do the job. I don't know, it's just kind of hindering the view, and I don't like it. But let me know in the comments down below what you think. I mean, in terms of realism, it's better, but I think it kind of destroys the view too much. Anyhow, so what it does make you walk further, and this is where you would go next. You go this area because you want to see the rest of the habitat, and then this view opens up to you. And there was my hard drive space gone again. Yeah, I do have to look a bit more into that one. So yeah, then this view opens up with you, and to the right hand side you have this indoor area, which there is still a bit of a roofing missing, but this area will be fully done, also with some backstage access and a bit of a nicer face once I do the dome in the next episode. So on Saturday we will have the pygmy hippo, not pigeon, but pygmy hippo, and also the finalization of this area over here. That's gonna be very nice indeed, and I really hope you all tune in, because I am really curious to see what you say to my approach, because there's some kind of little idea I have about this dome. And I really want to bring Yosemite back. You know, Yosemite is kind of fell short in terms of content from my side, but also it seems to be not loved anymore by the people. It by far has the least views in comparison, which I don't want to open any box here again, okay? I'm just saying true facts. The views and stuff is still all great, but I think in terms of the overall appreciation, I think Yosemite just deserves more, just also by putting more effort again in that stuff. So that is the reason why I also spend so much time and so much planning with this episode, making this creek really nice and planned out. And I really think I delivered on that, and overall the habitat delivers. Also, I want to just quickly say I maintained the view of the half dome. I wanted to make sure that you still have the half dome as a little weenie of the zoo at all times. This little dude really loves to throw down that box, and then it's just always confused why the box is gone. Maybe I should put the box somewhere else. No, I won't. It should learn. But yeah, just to bring some love back to wonderful Yosemite Valley. I do hope that you guys give me some feedback, maybe why you stepped away if you just came back today. Well, that's kind of a weird question, right? Because if you are not interested anymore, you potentially would not watch that episode. However, you can just tell me what would need to be changed, or what I need to change in order to make you more interested again. Do I need to change the format? Do you want to have more the tour style and not the time lapses anymore? Because actually I think there is a huge trend going on right now, that a majority of people seem to favor the tour style over the time-lapse in general. Like, personally, for me, it doesn't really make a huge difference. Honestly, it actually is even easier to make the tour style, okay? So it's in terms of effort and value and stuff, it's easier to make the tours. I still do love the time-lapse for the satisfying speed builds. I'm just still a fan of it. So fun fact, I still did the full time lapse of Koali Zoo last week, and I just made it for myself. It's like 1 hour even in time lapse, so it's insane. But I just wanted to see that, you know. It's, for me, it's just relaxing to see it, and I'm just satisfied by it. This is how I came into this whole YouTube thing. And I think I'm never gonna get tired of it. So that's the main reason. But yeah, so that's it for today's episode with Yosemite Valley, with the wonderful new Black Panther Creek, as I want to call it. And I should call it Jaguar Creek though, but I think I'm just gonna call it a Black Panther. Yeah, I think I didn't forget anything, did I? Whatever. Happy hump day to you guys. It's quite a long episode. I hope you enjoyed. And make sure to leave the feedback how you like this episode. What would you love to see in Yosemite to kind of drive you more towards Yosemite again? And have you checked out the Season 1 park, which is uploaded to the workshop? So please put everything down below in the comments. I'm more than happy to react and answer. But for now, happy hump day. And I see you again in the next one. Goodbye.